Thursday, I'm Mike Mozingo, and it's my pleasure to welcome to the show Yael Ossowski. He is the Deputy Director of the Consumer Choice Center, calling in today to talk a little bit about cryptocurrency. Yael, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Great to talk to you from Indianapolis, all the way around the country.
From Indianapolis today. Might I say, before we get into things, you have a fantastic voice for radio, sir. My goodness, you're making me sound bad.
I think it just comes down to the microphone that you have. So I'm blessed with a good one. That helps out.
You have a very good microphone in front of you there. So tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you end up in this world of crypto?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know you've had my colleague Stephen Kent on, but we're colleagues at Consumer Choice Center. We've been consumer activists. We've been basically defending the rights of consumers who like cool and innovative stuff. I've been in the world of I would say Bitcoin, much more so than crypto, really since 2013 or so. So I've always been very interested in it from an ideological perspective, technological perspective, understood why it was different. It's a decentralized online cryptocurrency. The ability to send gold via email, basically, is what you have with something like Bitcoin. So it's always very interesting to me. And then, I've also been doing a little bit of work in D.C., lobbying for a few bills, helping educate lawmakers on how some of this stuff works, and generally advocating for the technology and people who use it. So I'm very active in a lot of this stuff. I still think there's so many potential things we can do with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, so much ability that we can have to actually own our money, to have self-custody, and to be able to send it really around the world without any intermediaries and a very low cost. So still very passionate about it, a big follower of this stuff, and very, very implicated in the crypto world, as it were.
Well, it is crypto week at the House. Last night they passed 3 bills related to cryptocurrency after a record-breaking 9-hour session of voting. The cryptocurrency world, to me, it's always kind of seemed like it's a bit of the Wild West, and you definitely have governments who are interested in regulating it, and they kind of want to harness its power as well. President Trump wants to make the United States kind of the hub for worldwide cryptocurrency activity. What can you tell me about these 3 bills that just passed the House last night? What are they meant to do? Do you see them as a good thing, as a bad thing?
I will say one thing is that it was actually just the rules that were passed last
just the
night.
Rules.
So
okay.
they're debating the bills at this moment right now in D.C. Head on over to C-SPAN. You can see it. You have 3 bills on offer. Number one is this is the Genius Act. This is related to stable coins. So this is going to be the ability to have cryptocurrencies that are pegged to the value of the U.S. dollar. So when you go to your PayPal account or your Robinhood account or your bank account, you will have this sort of digital dollar that you would be able to send. And essentially this bill creates the framework for legalizing that. And these would be private stablecoins run by private companies. And basically the sort of trade-off is that these companies have to buy U.S. treasuries in order to offer these stablecoins. So the Trump administration is pushing it because they see it as a way that we can get more people buying up U.S. debt and hopefully propel it. So that's one bill. The other one is called the Clarity Act. This one is the market structure. What is a commodity? What is a security? What's the difference between the cryptos? Who regulates what? It's essentially a fairly boring regulatory bill, but it has some important parts to it. That's the second one. The third one would ban a central bank digital currency, essentially a stablecoin that would be run by the Federal Reserve or the government. This is also a very good bill because it would not allow the U.S. government to develop this or require it. And that means that we need to keep a little bit more financial privacy, which I think is a very good thing.
So you've got 2 bills there kind of dealing with that stablecoin. The first one that we mentioned, the Genius Act, just for my own understanding. So it's basically a private entity. Let's just say they have $100 in the bank. They hold on to that $100 in reserve, and then they issue cryptocurrency that's linked to the value of that $100, but it's private. That's different from the central bank digital currency, which would basically do the same thing but be government run?
Exactly. And, you already have 2 very large stable coins. So one is called Tether, and there's another one that's run by Circle that's just called USDC. And this is, everyone uses it in the crypto environments and exchanges and online. And the more interesting aspect of this is that, the U.S. is trying to introduce this bill, but globally, people who are in Argentina or people who are across the African continent, they all use these dollar-backed stable coins essentially so they can trade dollars, so they can participate using the strength of the U.S. dollar. They're using that money digitally already, And it's just this crazy thing where the U.S. is the reserve currency. The dollar is the reserve currency of the world. Everybody uses it in their trading. Everybody uses it for saving. And we don't yet have this legal mechanism that we can have these private stable coins actually prosper or really be legal yet. So, yeah, I think it's very needed. The private stablecoin issuers, as you mentioned, they are required to keep those reserves either full cash or treasuries. And these companies do a pretty good job in doing that so far. There have been busts in the past, but these are guys who are using algorithms and, they had shares in companies as the reserves. So I think here you're going to have a lot more transparency because we have to imagine banks don't have all the money in their vaults, right? But stablecoins will be required to be at 100% reserves.
Interesting. So let's take it back to before President Trump got into office. How would you describe the U.S. government stance on crypto then, and then compare it to how the Trump administration sees cryptocurrency now? What's different now than from what we had before Trump got back into office?
Diabolically hostile. That's basically what the Democratic administration was. Even Trump's first term, he wasn't too hot on many of the cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. He just, from everything we've heard, he just got more interested after he was sort of prosecuted or persecuted, depending on your use of the term, by various courts and governments and all the rest. But during the Democratic administration, they were actively going after several companies, using the Securities and Exchange Commission to go after crypto companies, to issue them warrant letters, to send agents into their offices, to find them, investigate them. And they would try to register with the government. They would try to go through the legal process, but the government made it very complicated. And there are all kinds of instances with Gary Gensler, who used to be the head of the SEC, that they were not open to these new technologies. So it was a very hostile sort of area, and it was difficult for American innovators to offer these products to consumers in our country, and they had to do it elsewhere. They had to go to the Cayman Islands, or they had to go over to Europe, or they had to go to different places in the Caribbean. And I think now with Trump, he's sort of seen the light. His sons obviously run a crypto company, which is a big part of the opposition from some of the Democrats, obviously. But the family is now intertwined. They understand this technology a bit more. And I think overall that's good, because it means consumers will have access to this, and they'll have consumer protections as well.
So when the president says that he wants to make the United States the global leader in crypto investment, is what he's talking about basically just making it a more friendly environment where you can have more stable coins created, where they can kind of facilitate the transfer of wealth via these digital currencies? What is it really that the administration can do to make the United States the go-to place for crypto?
Yeah, I think it comes down to the rules, and it comes down to the entrepreneurship. And if you have the builders and the developers, if we can get them from these other countries where they are building stuff in places like Singapore or Hong Kong or even in London, if we can get them moving to the United States, building better products and services, and these are all the ancillary things around Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. So you have to think of the mining, this sort of data centers where they're trying to figure out the next block that comes down the blockchain, or the different services that help out with cryptocurrency, and all the different tools that are going to be built so they can be integrated into businesses and point of sale systems. So it's about making the environment better so that the U.S. can lead and provide an example. So that'll be with jobs. It will be with different sorts of businesses and websites. I think it's just for really easing up on the rules, not sending anybody to jail or just messing around with cryptocurrency, and really making it so that people can invest securely and know that there is a stable environment. This isn't all just going to be swept away by an executive order tomorrow.
So when we were setting up the interview, your colleague Stephen Kent and I were chatting a little bit, and he had mentioned that you played a role in nudging the Trump administration to let home buyers use crypto assets to require a mortgage. Why is that important, and how exactly does that work? How do you use crypto assets to buy real estate?
So everybody knows homes are expensive, super pricey. Particularly if you're a younger person, you really can't think about home ownership at this moment. You got to catch up with the rent. Try to go out there and make money. And, what we started noticing in a lot of the regulations is that when people go to buy a house, if you do have crypto assets, and, a lot of millennials do, and I think the latest estimate is that something like 25% of Americans have owned some kind of digital currency at some point. But if the bank evaluates your books and they look at your accounts, if you have cryptocurrency, and even if you have, a good amount, $20,000, let's say, they do not consider that an asset for collateral. So they don't consider it as a positive sum. So if you have, $200,000 in cryptocurrency that you've been saving, you've piled up over the years, the bank will look at that and say, well, that's technically worth zero to us. So that is something that is enshrined in a lot of the procedures and rules of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, who bundle all of our mortgages together. And there was a rule change that we sought, that we lobbied for, that would essentially get rid of that. It's called the selling guide, and would allow people to actually show on the books their cryptocurrency and be able to put that down and to say, okay, this is the collateral for buying a home, which could make your interest rate lower. It could make your payments a lot less. And thankfully, this was just changed about 3 weeks ago by the head of the agency, Bill Pulte. And he has said that now the member banks of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and basically every mortgage lender in the country should accept cryptocurrency as an asset for collateral. So it's a very good win, and something that I think a lot of younger people who've been saving in these alternative currencies gives them a shot at homeownership as well.
Does the type of cryptocurrency matter? Because, some of the coins out there are pretty volatile. Then you have ones that are obviously more stable. I mean, are they looking at the account and saying, well, you've got a lot of money in Doge, but that thing swings wildly. We'd rather see it in Bitcoin. Is that part of the calculation?
Well, there won't be any strict requirements. So the bills that are being discussed today do set this out. They call them mature blockchain systems, which would be something like Bitcoin or Ethereum, which have a huge market cap, have a lot of companies and businesses, have ETFs that have been approved by the government. So the rule change does not specify, and it would be up to the individual lenders to figure that out. I could tell them which coin I'd prefer, but again, it should be an open market. Let them compete. I do think there will be eventual standards introduced that will be mature blockchain systems, which is what the legislation is calling it. So yeah, it probably will be the bigger ones like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then stablecoins. We also have to think about that. There'll be an opportunity there as well.
So I've got a ton of other questions, but unfortunately we're running short on time here. Talking with Yael Ossowski, he's the Deputy Director of the Consumer Choice Center, also a fellow at the Bitcoin Policy Institute. Bitcoin can be a bit overwhelming for folks. It can be a little confusing. For people that are interested in the audience that maybe want to get into crypto, obviously we're not necessarily giving financial advice here, but where do they start? Is there a good website where people can start educating themselves? Is there a place where they can kind of get at least a foundational understanding of how crypto works and how they may be able to benefit from it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't I don't condone certain apps or services, but there's a lot of them out there, and there are tens of millions of people in this country who use Cash App, and if you use Cash App, which you can use to pay your friends like PayPal or Venmo, go into the app and click the Bitcoin button. It's there, and there are all kinds of little guides that teach you certain things. If you want to throw in $5 or $10, you can, and you can learn a lot about it. I think that is a great way to learn. There are other great brokerages like River. You can buy things on Coinbase. There's a very active marketplace right now, a lot of people competing. But I think looking at Cash App is probably one of the easiest places because it's already there, and also in PayPal. And realistically, you are going to be able to purchase things like Bitcoin at your bank very soon. That is something that banks are lobbying for, that they're debating right now in D.C. So it will be much more of the part of our active financial life. But a lot of listeners who are interested, you can look at that. You can also go to the website of the Bitcoin Policy Institute, where we have a lot of research and guides and kind of explain this a bit more for people. Believe me, it takes time to understand and get. But once you do, you just never stop talking about it, which I guess I'm fulfilling as well today.
Yes, you are. And I appreciate your time this morning. Yael Ossowski, he is the Deputy Director of the Consumer Choice Center. Love to have you back on, talk a little more crypto sometime here in the near future. Thanks for calling in today.